Georges Schwizgebel is a classical animator, but not in the sense of a classical animator such as Disney's Nine Old Men, who focuses on squash and stretch. No, Schwizgebel is an animator who animates in the classical concerns of animation. He uses space and time and dimensionality and color for his work. And he works in traditional methods. He uses paint and pigment, mostly on cels, but primarily on glass. And when we look at his library of short films, they present a very much a different world from that of the more traditional storytelling narrative. He's been making films for almost 50 years now, and his films have been shown at numerous festivals, has won major awards at all the animation festivals. So I'm presented this morning with this daunting task of sitting down to discuss this large, impressive work that George has done. We're going to reflect on, we're going to acknowledge his auteur style that George has developed and perfected over these 50 years. Welcome, Georges Schwizgebel, to the Spark Animation Festival online.
Thank you.
Your animation style is often described as unique. It's visually captivating. Could you perhaps elaborate on how you developed this distinct style over the years?
Thank you for thinking that I have a captivating style, but it is difficult to explain this own style. Perhaps my choice is not using dialogue and expressing myself only with movement and music. Avoiding cut gave me this style. And also because everything is done by me. By hand.
Maybe you can share some insights into your creative process when you start thinking about conceptualizing and then you're producing it. Where do you start, and where do you start with that process of concept?
I start with line test. I spend a lot of time with line test, even before making a storyboard. And not only to develop the animation, but above all to get an idea and of the editing, written, and structure of the film.
Interesting. Now, when we look at your work, a lot of them really explore this theme of time and memory. Maybe you could discuss the significance of these themes in your animation. Why are you drawn to those themes of time and memory?
Memory and time. In several of my films, I have used the movement on a cycle. And during the movement, the story unfolds in time, and then when we see the intercycle, as there is together the beginning and the end. There is no longer time but space. It is probably also because I avoid cuts and I like to follow the logic of a dream to tell a story. And also because I think it is better to suggest events to leave the freedom of interpretation to the viewer. Do not make educational or propaganda film.
Right. Yeah, your films are very dreamlike. And when you say you don't do much editing in your films, it just flows, that dreamlike flow. We really get a sense of that, feeling that it's either a dream or sometimes even a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. One of your most famous films is The Battle of San Romano, of course, based on the very famous painting. This is a very notable work of yours that maybe you could tell us about the inspiration behind this film and then the challenges that you faced while you made it. What was the inspiration for making this film?
But as the Battle of San Romano started from a visual idea that came from the film The Ride to the Abyss, where I had the idea to have only a 6 second cycle and to tell a story with only a 6 second cycle. But I have existing music. With the Battle of San Romano, I don't have existing music, but I have existing painting.
Right.
And um, at first, I did no for the for the High to the Abyss. At first, I don't know exactly what I want to tell. I have the music and the visual idea, but not story. And then the story it's about the subject of this song. But for the Battle of San Romano, I don't have music, but I have a beautiful painting and this visual ID, the same visual ID. Uh, I start with a painting with this magnification, and which I had reproduced on a large postcard a long time ago. And I think this picture is good. It's ideal to make a cycle with it. The painting is also has the advantage having to 69 ratio. It was a format at that time they used this for the painting, like now a computer or TV. Mm.
Yeah.
I divided in 16 rectangles the painting. We have 16 different, 16 rectangles, and I passed from one rectangle to another one in 1.5 seconds. It's been 36 different drawings. When we was in the second rectangle, it's the same painting. And then, so this painting is destruct and restrict in every 1.5 seconds. It is a movement in spiral. Spiral, yes. And what is difficult at the beginning, it's to decide which element become another element in the next rectangle. So the beginning is very difficult, and now more and more easy to measure film. And also some elements disappear, so I must not forget to reappear in another place because they are full of details. So it was quite a long time to correct every mistake.
Well, it's a very amazing piece. And I love the idea that we take this single frame painting and now we have movement and we're bringing it alive. And as the animation. So very interesting how you broke it down into 16 frames itself and then slowly basically moving through the picture and bringing that story, that painting alive. It's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, well done. You you mentioned I don't have the question written down here, but you talk often about, like, for example, that painting was an inspiration for you, but also music is a big inspiration for your work in animation as well. Maybe you could talk about music and how has that inspired some of your animation?
About half of my film, I use existing music. And so the structure, the rhythm become as follows the music. But sometimes I don't. I have an idea, for example, for the Battle of San Romano, I don't have music, but I have written in my animation, and then I ask a music composer to make the music to follow the rhythm of my animation. And sometimes it is difficult to tell a story with existing music. So when I try to tell a story, I ask a music composer to make the music after.
Well, let's build on that. So you're collaborating. You often collaborate
Mm.
And this is a big role in animation, of course. Maybe, do you have any memorable experiences from collaborating with other artists or other studios?
Uh, I, I always work alone.
Mm.
And so it is only since the arrival of digital I cannot use computer very well. So I ask a friend to make the post-production. What I made directly under the camera, now it is with a computer. It's quite the same work, but so I have a, and also music composer. I work with music composer or also from with several other people for the mixing or writing. But
And
I don't have a lot of story with my colleagues because I don't have a lot of colleagues.
yeah, you are very much that independent auteur.
Yes, yes, yes.
Very much that way. Animation can convey a lot of powerful messages. You said you don't try to do that with politics and messages, but it conveys a lot of emotion. Your films convey a lot of emotion. Maybe you could tell us about a specific piece of yours that you believe had a very particularly strong emotional impact on an audience.
Maybe it. So I saw it's difficult to tell a story with existing music, but for the El King, um, it's a but it helped me because this magnificent music of Schubert, um, it's based on Goethe poems. So the music tells the same story. So it was a little bit more easy to tell the story with the music. I replace the lyric. I use images, no lyric, but images. And maybe I managed to reach the audience with this film.
So many, and you have so many strong pieces that are musically driven, and they do have a strong impact on people. Yeah. So as an animator, you've had great successes, but also you have many challenges. Maybe you could talk about tell us a story about or an experience about a project that was particularly, what was the challenge that you had and how you overcame those challenges, because you're working by yourself a lot all the time. So how do you work through those challenges that you have in creating a project?
With the film, the subject of the picture, I was surprised that no one understands the story in the previews of the film. Even so, the subject was very easy to understand in the storyboard, but it had disappeared in the film.
Uh,
The In fact, in this film, I focused in on visual idea, which also gave birth of other film. And the Right to the Abyss, for example, I have a small part with only a cycle, and then I think, maybe I can do a film with only one cycle. On the Year of the Deer, because we cannot understand this film, I think now I must make a film we can understand. So I read this, the Year of the Deer, because it's a Chinese tale we not understand. If we don't understand, it's not interesting. And also the Retouche. Retouche, I made that film maybe 20 years later, but in the subject of the picture, I also have something who move, and I correct something who move. Some duck on the water become printed duck on the curtains. And then I think I will do a film with this idea. It was Retouche. So it was not a failure, but an half success, that film.
oh, there you go. It's sometimes
Maybe, sorry, maybe it's a use mistake. When we start to make animated film, we forget sometimes about the audience.
right. We end up making it for ourselves. Yeah. And then what we have in our head to get it down into the pencil and then to animate. And we know it's clear up here, but it's not there clear on the paper.
Yes.
It's very hard. And then for somebody else to get into our head, it's very difficult. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for every animator. And I could imagine you've had many of your challenges as well. You've been animating for 50 years?
Yes.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of changes. You've seen the animation industry evolve a lot. How have you adapted, and how do you see it continuing to evolve?
I am not very adapted because for example, when the special effects start, we think, not only me, but a lot of people think maybe animation will be finished because now we can do movement on space, metamorphosis very easy with a computer. But it was opposite. Full of animated film now, more than before. and because there are a lot of they need a lot of animator for even for future film, and I think maybe in the future it will be very difficult to understand it is animated film or feature film, because the 3D more and more become like live action. So I think on the future, maybe almost of the film we cannot see what is it, and maybe still a niche for a film with real actor, and also a niche with film handmade film or cartoon, or we can see the drawing. But maybe I am wrong, like with a special effect.
But I think you're right in many ways in that traditional animation, the way you as an independent auteur, we recognize your style. We see your handprint. It's when we see a Georges Schwizgebel film, we know this is yours. I don't even have to see the credits. I know that's your film. And there's many other animators like you, like that are auteurs. And so even though we have this technology, I see with CG and computer animation, a lot of it looks the same. It doesn't have that hand drawn, hand feel. I don't know who did that. I don't know who did that. I can't nowadays I can't even tell if it's Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks or it could be any studio. But what you're doing is
maybe we can not me, but the specialist can see which program it is.
Yeah. But I think that's the problem. And this is it is good though. What you mentioned, how now with computer animation, some of the programs, they are duplicating what can be done by hand. And that's a nice, maybe we'll see with this artificial intelligence. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's definitely evolving. But having it hand drawn like what you're doing is amazing. I didn't have it in our questions that I shared with, but I know it's International Animation Day coming up, October 28th. Now, and Asifa asked you to design this year's poster. Now, how did you, what was your approach? You obviously was very excited to be a part of that.
About the poster, the subject of my poster, it is exactly the contrary of I don't work like that. But I want use handmade to make a drawing about computer made.
Right. And it's very much in your style, even though you don't do posters. It's very much, it's like a frame of one of your films. It's great. We look forward to celebrating Animation Day on October 28th. That's awesome. Now, you're recognized as a master in animation. You are a legend in animation. So for myself, I teach animation as well. I teach at the Vancouver Film School and other conferences and that, and talk to a lot of students. What advice would you give to aspiring animators who want to achieve excellence?
It is not easy to make a living just making art house animated short films. You really have to be passionate and have luck to succeed. But we also need animation jobs in fiction or live action documentary film. So there is therefore room for those who master the technique well. And mastering the technique does not prevent creation, quite the contrary.
I agree. I think you're right in that regard. Mastering the technique. It's a lot of young people emphasize the computer, the digital aspects. But I think when you get the skills and understand, for example, like color theory and composition and the basics of animation, and then use those tools, I think that's really the key as well. So for yourself, George, what are you working on now? What's the future for you? What are we going to be seeing next from you as we approach 2024?
Yes, maybe I made a 22 My next film will be the 22. I start a new film, yes. I hope to finish it in 2 years, maybe.
Oh, wow. That's a long, wow. Wow. Okay. Well, that's an amazing time. Well, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you, George, and to share this morning with you and have you consult. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Uh, I, I, for the audience or for your student,
For our international audience on the Spark Animation Festival.
uh, I am very lucky to merge what I like to do and get enough money to continue. I was very lucky.
It's everybody's dream, right? To be able to work at doing something we love.
Exactly.
And you have had an amazing career and great success at it. And you are a wonderful example to follow. That is, someone has made his own path and stuck true to himself. Thank you very much, though.